Hi, I'm Frances Katzen, and welcome to my podcast, The World of Real Estate. In this series, we will explore the world's largest asset class and how it plays out on a global scale. There seems to be this myth that properties just sell themselves, but actually, in my opinion, there's a lot that goes into it. And one of the most important components, in my opinion, is the staging and the preparation of that staging. Because without that, the fantasy and the idea and the optics of the space just doesn't come together. So without further ado, I wanted to introduce you to one of the best staging groups that I've found in New York City, Quadra, run by Robert Sablic and his wife, Danielle, who unfortunately couldn't be with us today. But I guess, to understand how a staging company becomes a staging company, I guess, starts with, how would you describe yourself, Robert?
Wow. What a question. I thought you weren't going to ask tough questions.
That's my middle name, Tough.
Yeah, that question has always kind of bothered me. I never really liked to
Interesting.
talk about myself. I let other people, form their opinions of me. But, if I could kind of use one word, be passion, right? That I like to lead my life with. I feel if you have passion, no matter what you do, no matter what it is, it's just going to move you and propel you forward. So I guess that would be my answer to that. Tough question, tough initial question.
Where did you grow up, Robert?
So I grew up what used to be Yugoslavia, back when, and I came here when I was 15. Actually, now it's all separated out. So I would be from Croatia.
Wow.
I came here when I was 15.
How did it feel being a boy from Croatia in New York City at the age of 15? I moved to New York when I was 15, and I remember it being such a culture shock from Australia. So how did that feel from where you were coming from?
I mean, it was magical, to be honest. It was a dream come true. When I think back and I remember my dad coming to me and saying, "Hey, we're moving to New York." It was a dream come true, right? Living in a town of like 100,000 people, moving to New York, it was something else. Now, when we got here, it was even more magical than I could have imagined it as a kid growing up in Yugoslavia.
Was Yugoslavia so tough? Did you see a lot of things that just did not feel organically right for you? Is that why?
It was a different life. It was a socialist environment. It was just a totally, totally different life where, things are kind of predetermined, let's say. You go into a store and you have one or two options. That's how it used to be. We were looking forward at the time to go to Italy and shop. It wasn't that bad, let's say, but, limited options. And then you come to New York and it's
the land of plenty.
Wow. It was such an amazing experience. I remember my parents took my sister and I for the first time to Times Square right after we landed.
Wow.
You can imagine how I felt as a 15-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember, actually, just to extend on that, I remember when we drove into Times Square when I arrived at 15, I wanted to do what Cagney and Lacey did and go one of those hot dog stands. Forget it. For those of you who don't know what Cagney and Lacey is, I just gave away my age. Anyway, so how does a boy from Croatia, Yugoslavia, at 15, comes to New York? Your father comes here, obviously. How did he get here? What was the story behind that?
Yeah, so he worked for a shipper over in Croatia. Let's call it Croatia now. And he came here on a 5-year mandate. So really, when we first came here back in whenever. We were supposed to stay here only 5 years and then go back, which is actually what happened. So that's how we got here. It was a limited, let's call it a limited engagement. So, I started absorbing everything that I could as a 15-year-old, 15 to 20. I started absorbing
the land of Mecca.
Knowing that we're going to go back.
That must have been very tough to taste freedom like that and then have to imagine going back into that type of environment.
Yeah, it was an interesting time, that's for sure. When we did go eventually back, it was when the war was just about, it was brewing.
Wow.
Yeah. So we ended up going back.
Oh my God.
Right. So it's
so how did you get back
story.
here?
So, after I spent about a year and a half back in Yugoslavia before the breakup.
Yep.
And I came back by myself. My parents sent me over to continue my studies. And, it was just one of those.
You're lucky.
You go into the war or you study. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow, Robert, that's quite a backstory.
Yeah, actually, I even forgot about that. That's crazy. Yeah, that's part of the story, I guess.
I remember Kusei and Kude were putting people up in the wood chippers. I mean, it was just an insane time, and Italy turned their back. But anyway, that's another day. Fast forward, how did you get into the love of design? How did this begin? How did Quadra begin?
Well, I met my wife. I met Danielle. I never really realized that I had this passion inside me. And when I met Danielle, we had gotten an apartment together and we started designing our apartment. And I think we both realized, oh, wow, this is awesome. We can affect the way we live just by, pieces of furniture and moving things around and so forth. So that's when it started. That's when we kind of realized
that there was a business to be had by moving things around and creating beauty and comfort.
Yeah. It was just, you realized at that point that this is what you love. This is what you enjoy. And then how to get to that point of making it into a business, that's a journey, right? That becomes a journey. But really, I think that what happened for us was realization. I worked at a bank at the time, and Danielle worked at Bloomberg Financial as a reporter for Brazilian TV. And that's great, and it was. But once we realized that passion, it's like, we got to figure out how to try to make money on this.
Isn't it amazing when you finally identify what makes you burn or what gives you that passion? The rest just sort of falls into place because the passion is sort of what drives it. So what does Quadra mean?
So, it wasn't really the initial name when we came up with it. The first name we came up with was Mobilaria, which is a Brazilian word, etc. But Quadra, what happened was about 6 months later, we had a couple of partners join in, friends of ours, to help us on the journey. So it was 4 of us. So we started with Quadra, and then also Quadra is really it's a room. It's 4 walls. It's 4 is a big number. 4 is a driving number.
Got it.
Quadra is also a block. So it became all about the interior space, the 4 walls.
Love the name. How would you and Daniela define your roles? Does one of you manage the day-to-day business and logistics while the other has a real eye for the design, or do you have a similar skill set? I mean, based on what you're saying, you both have a great eye.
Thank you. Well, we both share the same passion, that's for sure. But Daniela is the heart and the soul of the company. She is the chief design officer of the company. Everything, all the design goes through her. So she handles the big time on the creative side, all the buying, etc. And I handle more things on the operational side, let's say.
How did you get backers to sort of support the idea that it would become a viable business?
Yeah, we didn't. We bootstrapped the business. So
what does that mean?
It's been a journey of growth. We are self-financed. We continue. We continue the growth. We never got to any rounds. So Danielle and I own the business 100%.
Amazing.
So, we love it that way because, we don't want to make this business about money. We want to make it about the passion first, the care that we have towards what we do. And then we'd love to make money on it.
Yeah. So you were in finance before, right, Robert? You were the vice president of BN Mellon.
Yep.
Do you ever miss it?
No. Well, that's a short answer, right? I found the passion where we wanted to go, etc. But I learned a lot. I was there for 15 years, learned a lot.
Wow.
On my journey there, for sure.
So it definitely helps to have.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, sorry. Please continue.
Yeah, no worries. So started off and worked my way up through the ranks. Learned a lot. So I would say that BNY was defining.
But that's a big jump. You go from a steady, you're VP, you're in finance. Your parents are like my son, the finance banker, and you go, hey, babe, hey, mom, dad, guess what? The love of my life and I, we're going to go and design homes. We think we're going to buy furniture, but then we're just going to move it around and make money. How does that work?
Yeah, it was an interesting time for sure. We started off because Quadra has a couple of different verticals, right? One is we have the staging side, and then we also have turnkey side for furniture for living. We actually started as a furniture, let's call it rental company, right?
Got it.
And then we transferred over. A few years later, we opened up the vertical of staging. So really, we wanted to affect the way people live to begin with. And then we realized that there's a bigger picture. It's not just about the way people live, but also the way people sell, right? And it's at the end of the day, it's about creating a feeling. Right?
And what was your big break in staging? What was the first job where you were like, oh, yeah, we can make this happen? This is going to be good.
Wow. I remember the first apartment that we did. We staged it for Moynihan. Down at 95, and down at 95 Wall Street. And then we realized, wow, this is, we love this side of the business as well. And that's how we started. And then we slowly started, Quadra grew really word of mouth, which I love. We never really advertised anything. We post on Instagram, etc. But it's mostly word of mouth. And I think that says a lot, about who we are and our DNA as a company.
So that's really interesting. So you basically got your break with Moynihan. You saw the impact of it. And so let's come back to this. So the staging design market has become rather saturated, right? Thanks to House and Garden TV, HGTV. How important is it to differentiate your projects in order for them to be successful? And what do you think gives Quadra an edge over the competition? If I might just chime in, one of the things that I loved about your work was that you would come in and create not just putting a table in the room, but you would build out like a modular piece against a wall that ran the entire length to give it depth, or you would put like a blackboard or chalkboard wallpaper up in the children's room. You guys were like so sophisticated, and it just pushed it over the edge, in my opinion, from a staging company. It never looked staged. It looked designed. And there's a difference, you know?
Yeah, first, thank you so much for saying that. That's numero uno. But, our approach is a little bit different. And one of the things that people a lot of times, think, they think of the furniture as an asset, really, right? When you're staging. So quite a bit of conversations that we have, it's like, do we, what are you bringing? What pieces are you bringing? Et cetera. And it's not about that. It is really about creating a feeling inside the space. We use furniture, artwork, and rugs, et cetera, as tools to create that feeling. So when somebody walks in, they're like, yeah, that's what I want. And then you want to make that space memorable. Now, to add to that, we have a awesome design team. Danielle has an awesome design team, and we collaborate
really
and we think. She does absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, Quadra and Danielle and myself, we're nothing without the team that we have, both on the design side, the logistics side, everybody. But just to add to that, because you have to think of each space has its own soul, has its own rhythm, heartbeat, right?
Love that.
So, yeah, and you have to see it, you have to look at it, you have to feel it, you have to understand the surroundings, understand who the prospective client is, etc. And then you play with textures, with colors, with pieces, with whatever it is, right? So that's really our approach. You got to think about it, you got to feel it, and and if sometimes we deliver, we create, and certain things don't work. You got to be flexible to change those things, right?
So true. How do you go about sourcing the pieces for your projects and for your inventory? Because they're exceptionally good.
Thank you again.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it is. It's a process. It's a arduous process.
Is it?
Danielle is very much so. Because it's the way we do. We carry our own inventory. We carry a lot of inventory. So we have a lot of things always in stock. But every project, we always purchase items. We always source items because they have to be project specific. Those are those items that are going to add that extra. So it takes quite a bit. We work with a lot of companies, a lot of different vendors all over the United States. But it takes hours, sometimes to source one piece of furniture.
How do you find that it's very difficult to explain the value of staging to, for example, I find it can be quite a hurdle to convince a seller or developer that staging is really incremental. Most get it, and some just financially just don't want to bear that burden. When it's done tastefully, it can add to their bottom line so efficiently, in my opinion, and it's worth the upfront investment. What's your elevator pitch to the skeptics? Come on, there's got to be a quick riff that you can espouse about why it is so fundamental. I'd love to hear it from you yourself.
Yeah, it's interesting. And if I'm stuck in the elevator with somebody, I just go, "Hey, you want a stage?" No. No, it is true. It is true. It's a very difficult proposition. Well, very difficult. It's a difficult thing sometimes to make people see the value up front, right? Because they have to spend the money up front, and it's like, well, what am I getting for it, right?
And most of them think it's overpriced, right?
I think one thing they don't realize is, first of all, you have inventory. There's a lot of background work that goes in before that is delivered. it's not just, it's not about really, it's not at all about the furniture and placing it. And, it's about the analysis. How does the light break in? What should we put things here? Should we put this there? And there's a whole process that happens before the actual delivery and setup, and then that's also a process. There's a lot of logistics that go back and forth in order for, for things to look right. I go back to when we first started one of the projects. I remember sitting with Danielle, I came to pick her up at one of the stations. She was standing there moving books around for an hour. And I'm like, Danielle, we got to go to dinner. And she's like, no, for 1 hour. And the truth is, after she was done moving the books around on the shelf, I realized why. Right? It made a difference in the way everything looked and the way it was composed. So how do you make people see that value up front? You have all kinds of numbers out there where and statistics to prove it, but even those numbers, I don't really believe, because each property is its own property, and it's different, right? So the thing is, the question I ask is, when you walk into an empty space, how do you feel? Versus when you walk into a space that is staged properly. That's the question, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Where do you find your talent?
A lot of talent reaches out to us, which is amazing. We go through the process, of making sure that whoever comes on board that fits within the energy of the company. It's super important, because we operate as a team across the board.
Yeah.
And at times we were wrong, and we brought somebody on board that could have been an amazing designer and everything, but it just didn't fit in. But most of the time, people reach out to us and say, "Hey, listen, I would love to work with you." So that has been our experience.
And what are the fundamentals of good staging? In other words, do you have a few pillars that you feel define your success? Sorry.
Pillars. I think our flexibility and ability to react on the fly and change, the breadth of our inventory, the different people that we have working for us, and thoughts, because every project, we have a meeting and everybody puts their thoughts into the mix. I think that's one of the pillars that defines us as who we are. So it's not just one person's opinion. There are reasons why certain things are done the way they're done, and we take everybody's opinion into consideration.
There are ones that are money grubbing, never satisfied, or trash the space. Have you ever had someone come in and use your staging as if it was their own, as if they were living there, and just trash it?
Yes.
And what was the worst example of that? Come on, I want to hear it all.
No, listen, it's tough. It was tough to see, because you go through that process of if you love and you're passionate about something, and we care about every single project, so when you see somebody disrespect, in a way that work that the whole team puts together, it really hurts. It goes right to the heart.
It does, right? It's so personal. I know.
It does. And that goes back to that passion and care and love for what you do. So I guess you got to take those bumps and bruises if that's going to be the approach.
Yeah. Have you seen the staging industry change in the last 15 years? More so the business than the design aesthetic? What have you seen change here?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of a lot of a lot more companies that have that are sprouting up. I think people are starting to realize that the value that staging can bring. So there are a lot more smaller companies that are coming out and doing the staging. I think some of them are doing a very nice job, and some of them not so much. Some of them it becomes about placing the furniture inside the space instead of creating the feeling. But I do think that the industry, the real estate industry, and everything is realizing uh, the ROI.
The risk, yeah, return on investment. There's no question.
Yeah.
I honestly think without it, it's almost virtually impossible to get top dollar for a property these days. Honestly, I think this sounds so generalized, so please don't send me hate mail for this one. But I do think that women buy with emotion, and there is a level of connection, as you said, from the heart and soul of a space, and men buy with numbers and are very visual. So I think when you can align those two in a space, you have a slam dunk. And I've seen it time and time and time again. When you put it together and you show people that the room can tolerate a queen size bed, it can showcase with a sitting area. People are like, wow, it just didn't seem that big when I walked in when it was empty. I really stand by staging. I think it is one of the most fundamental components to getting a property sold at top dollar. Do you have a favorite project, Robert, that you've designed? And if so, what about it did you love?
Whew.
Do you like how I just threw that out there? Just right there.
So I'll give you two.
Okay.
I'll give you one,
good.
which is so we did a while back. We did Jackson Pollock's old place in the West Village. Yeah,
so
super
cool.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was super simple. It was like almost attic kind of space, and a walk up, small. And I just remember transforming that space into something special, because when the space is small, those are kind of my favorite spaces to stage, because you have that ability to create something out of that small space, and it's really becomes about, okay, where do we put the sofa, where do we put the chair, do we put a chair, and a dining table,
right?
So that was probably going back, but I do have to say, the Charles was one of my favorite. Okay, which
you did
which
such
is
a
yours.
great. Yeah, I really. You either loved it or you hated it. There was no in between with our staging. I deliberately wanted it to be very British and very colorful versus beige on beige on beige, as a way to show context to the beige, very safe staging. And you guys came through, in my opinion.
Thank you again. I mean, you did get a sellout on that thing, which is awesome, right?
Yeah.
But that was a very, very pop kind of place for me. So, yeah, those are two that stand out in the sea of lemons.
You know which one blew me away was when you did the staging for me at 133 West 22nd Street. I mean, I have never seen such a transformation. And the penthouse at 245 East 47th Street. I couldn't believe what you did with that space. My mouth dropped. Those were unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So, have you ever turned away a project? And if so, without telling us what it was, why?
We have, and like what we said before, sometimes people just don't understand, how this works and why we do what we do. When sometimes people get stuck with the fact that they believe that you're bringing assets into their space, and it becomes very transactional, and that's not what staging is. Staging is creating a feeling with those tools, and sometimes you just don't have that ability to see, to make people see that and that's okay. We have to part ways at that time. We did it once, and it was a terrible experience. And if we see that that's kind of the way it's going, we prefer to turn away than cause aggravation for them and for us.
Yep. And what advice would you give someone just starting out in this career?
You got to love it. You have to love it. You have to be passionate about it.
Yeah.
Do one project. Yeah. I know I keep going back to this, to passion, but really
no, it's the most fundamental driver. I get you. I'm with you.
Yeah. If you don't enjoy and love what you do, it's not going to, it's first of all, it's going to show in the way it's done. And second of all, you're not going to be happy. And life is, we have limited time on this planet. We should all be happy. Or at least try.
I love that. I wish I'd known that a while ago. I'm kidding.
Oh, stop it. it.
How would you describe your personal design aesthetic as Quadra?
It's I don't think I have one. I think that, every space has its own, like what we said, soul, heartbeat, and, and seeing all these different spaces over the years, I think it's that adjustment. It kind of opens your eyes, Before we started this journey, I did have an aesthetic, but now it's, you have to fit it within the space. You have to understand.
But what would you say is your design? Because you've got a very sophisticated, it's not cookie cutter. It's not it's really beautiful. So come on, give us a little insight into that. You and Danielle definitely have a feel. Your product is always beautiful. It's never schlocky. It's never like, oi, that looks like something of, something that it shouldn't be. It always looks top notch, in my opinion.
Thank you again. Much obliged. I don't know. That's another tough question, really. Because I do consider, I think it has to be smart, and by smart I don't mean it has to, like every piece of furniture. Every piece of furniture that Danielle buys, and she goes through that painstaking process, and sometimes I go with through it with her, and every piece has its own story. I don't know if I can answer that question really. It's a tough question, Francis. Wow.
Yeah, I tend to. There's that word again, tough.
Maybe we can come back to it. Let me think about it a little bit.
Okay, you marinate on that one, Robert. Which advice? So is there someone along your journey who you would credit as your mentor, or is the culmination of people? Because you talk a lot about your wife, Daniela, who obviously is that vehicle to provide you the courage to jump into your passion versus listen to your head. And out of that, you've had the most amazing ride and created a very fruitful business that now services two sides of that business path. But was there a mentor? Was there a culmination of other people that sort of said, dude, jump into the abyss and do what you love, even if it sounds crazy?
Yeah, clearly Danielle, she's the numero uno. But it's life is a journey, right? So it's an addition. So every time as you go through life, everybody plays a certain role, a certain level of role or whatever in that journey at that specific time. So you get affected, as a person and, who you become throughout that journey. Some people are affected a little less, some people more. But if I can name one person, it would probably be my manager's manager at the Bank of New York for 15 years, who taught me some, awesome things. His name is Bob Loop. I still talk to him every once in a while.
And who is Bob Luke?
Bob Luke was a senior manager at the Bank of New York.
At the bank. Okay, got it.
Yeah, at the bank. We would sit, have awesome conversations. He's just a great person with an amazing soul. He gave me some. Yeah, he was. He is. Was just because I don't work at the bank.
Got it.
Yeah.
If you're not working, what are you doing?
I am playing tennis. I am bike riding.
Wow.
Yeah. Listening to music. Love music.
Which type? What type?
Every type. I go from rap to classical to pop to Croatian to Brazilian, right?
I love Brazilian. Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
Do you miss Croatia?
So, I do a bit. I have family there and I have friends there. We go every summer for a few weeks, 2-3 weeks. It's an amazing place, Croatia. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
The whole country has 4 million people.
It is beautiful. I want to do the Dalmatian Islands. Thank you very much.
Oh, it's amazing. You should, we'll organize.
You're on.
Awesome.
And so, lastly, what is your greatest vice?
My greatest vice? Buying furniture.
How apropos for one of the top staging groups in New York, if not around America. I want to thank you, Robert, and I'm sorry Danielle couldn't be with us, but thank you so much for stepping in to sit with me today and talk about not only the business of staging, but you, because it's you and Daniela who have created such a fruitful and beautiful staging company. And for those of you who are not familiar, please check them out. They are phenomenal. Thank you for making your time with me today. It was great to meet you on the podcast.
Thank you very much. And I'm sorry that Danielle couldn't be here, but maybe we do.
We'll do a redo.
All right, sounds good.